Hello and welcome to the next lesson in our Cinematic Explosion series, and in this lesson we're going to actually break this planet into a lot of different pieces and throw the pieces out into oblivion. Now the way we're going to achieve this is by creating another smaller sphere in our viewport. Now while I'm creating the sphere, I'm also going to um, um, tell you that I've gone ahead and saved this file, right? So it is a good practice to go ahead and save your file right now before we move on to the actual simulation, because while simulating a lot of different things could go wrong. You might lose the file itself if you have not saved it, so it's a very good idea to go ahead and save your scene at this point in time. Okay, so I'm gonna create this sphere, and let's use the move key and see where exactly it's gonna hit. Okay, so let's say I'm gonna go into my shading and I'm gonna say edged faces. Let's see where it hits. Okay, so it's gonna kind of impact here, which I'm okay with. I'm also going to go ahead. So basically the small sphere is just going to be my impact object. It's really not even going to be rendered out. So I'm going to go ahead and change the segments to, let's say, around 10. We already have a lot of geometry to work with, so we really don't want a lot of we want to really keep or try and keep our scene as clean as possible. And we can so this is how it's going to be. So the sphere comes in and hits the planet, and then the planet kind of breaks, right? So that's how we want it. So I'm also gonna I don't want the sphere rendered out, so I'm gonna right click and select object properties, and I'm gonna remove renderable and click on OK. Right, so that's gonna ensure that at any point in time the sphere is not going to be rendered, so we can in fact render this out. Yep, so you can see that we have our planet but the sphere is not rendered, which is excellent. Now I'm gonna select the sphere and I'm gonna animate it at around, let's say, frame 10. I'm gonna animate the sphere inside the planet, so it kind of goes into the planet there. Okay, so in 10 frames it kind of flies in, right? So something else that I want to do is I want to select these keyframes, right? And I'm gonna move this to, let's say, around frame 15. So basically what I'm telling 3ds Max is until frame 15 I do not want any impact on my planet. So it's only after that. So if you look at this, at around frame 22, 21 or 22 is when the actual impact is going to take place, which is exactly what I'm looking for. Fantastic. And also something else that I'm going to do at this point in time is click on time configuration, which is here, and I'm going to change the end time to 200 frames and click on OK. So it's going to create a lot more room for us to work with our dynamics. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is select my sphere, my impact object. Let me go ahead and name this, because otherwise we're going to have a selection set filled with spheres. So let me call this impact underscore object. Okay, so this is my impact object. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to say create PDI body, right? And I'm going to select the type to, let's say static, right? I really don't want anything happening on this. I'm going to call this animated. Yes, this is an animated object, and I'm going to make this static. So what's going to happen is this sphere is not going to be calculated for simulation. It's merely going to act like, let's say, like a ground, So other rigid bodies would react to the sphere. However, the impact object is not going to react to any of the rigid bodies in the scene, which is exactly what we want. Let me take a look at all of these. We ideally don't have to change anything here. Okay, it looks fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how it looks now, Right, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click on Control S one last time before I move ahead with the testing. I'm going to test this out. Okay, you see that nothing really happens. Okay, so let's go and troubleshoot. Mm. Alright, so let's go ahead and select my shadow group, click on OK, and let's go ahead and say, or rather let me select this and let's say set dynamic property. Right, it looks fine. Anything else here? I really don't want to fracture anything right now. Okay, let me say play simulation. Okay, it's a little strange that nothing happens to our sphere right now. Let me see what needs to be done. Okay, so I finally found the culprit that was causing a problem here. So if I select my impact object and if I go into its dynamic properties or create PDI bodies, I had it originally set to static, so that kind of made this object invisible for simulation. Rather, here I'm going to select this to kinematic, and then if I go ahead into my simulation options once again and do a preview simulation, now ideally everything should break and be thrown to bits. Now again, this is going to take a while to compute depending on your system performance and the memory that you have in your computer. This can take even a couple of hours to finish. But again, this is just a preview. But you can see how nicely the object kind of breaks into pieces right now. Right, so you really don't have to wait for the entire simulation to run. So I'm just going to stop right here. So it's just a matter of you wanting to see if everything looks the way you want it to look. And I think I'm pretty happy with my results so far. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and reset my simulation. So that can be done by clicking on this rewind kind of a symbol here. Okay, so my simulation is reset, and I'm gonna go ahead and select bake keys. So what bake keys is going to do is take each of these objects and create keyframe for these objects. So these objects become animated and they're a lot more manageable after that. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and click on bake frames. So that's gonna pretty much break our objects into pieces. So I'm again going to pause out the video and come back to you once this is done. Okay, so if you come this far, you should probably end up with a scene that looks similar to this. Now, the minute you hit bake keys and run the simulation, it should ideally create, there you can see a set of keyframes for each of these objects. So any object that you select will have a set of keyframes associated with it. So now you could go ahead and make changes to the keyframe to fine-tune the way these objects behave in dynamic space. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove bake keys so that we don't end up simulating it over and over again every time. And I'm just going to go ahead and click on go to start. Okay, now at this point I can select my impact object and I can even hide it. So I've hidden the selection, and now if you run the play key, you can see the planet exploding. Great, so it looks nice at this point, and I'm quite happy with the results. Let's kind of see the explosion from a different angle here. Great. I really like the effect so far. So go ahead and again, these are dynamic simulations. Do not expect results to be exactly identical, right? So depending on your computer, and every time you hit the simulate button, you're gonna get a different variation to it, right? So you can go ahead and save the scene at this point in time.